Good evening. After a two-day manhunt, 2 sleepless nights, law enforcement have apprehended Vance Bolter. That's 48 hours of law enforcement involved in a complex and dangerous man.
Tim Walz. I don't know who thought he was a good idea. He was like a second iteration of Tim Kaine, but even worse. He turned out to be a...
Picture this. Tim Walz thinks he's playing a smart game, like chess, but Lindi just flipped the board, grabbed the queen, and started playing her own game as if it were nothing. This isn't politics anymore. It's a roast, a breakdown, and a twist all at once. If you thought Walz had his secrets locked up tight, think again. Lindi walked in with the keys, a flashlight, and popcorn in hand. Buckle up, because things are about to get wild.
These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us.
He was trafficking in lies and conspiracies. He said that he never supported a national abortion ban. We had in writing a screenshot from his website wherein he supported a national abortion ban. So he was just lying.
If you're enjoying this, hit the subscribe button. It helps more than you know. Tim Walz was rolling toward 2025, fully confident that his calm, Midwestern nice guy image couldn't be touched. He was political comfort food, simple, familiar, and safe. Then Lindi showed up. She didn't politely knock on that polished image, she smashed straight through it with sarcasm sharp enough to cut. All of a sudden, the governor's spotless reputation didn't look warm and comforting anymore. It looked like leftovers forgotten in the fridge, soft, questionable, and getting worse by the minute.
Who could possibly think it would be a good idea to lie about being in Tiananmen Square when you were in Nebraska? I mean, come on, it is so beyond the pale. And now he's thinking about running for president. Didn't he get the memo that the American people do not want a second coming of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz? And Kamala is in California considering a run for governor. We do not want any more DEI, woke, any of that. We just don't. We're done with the woke and the woke and trans influence.
Walz's whole image has always felt like one big act. The calm, steady leader telling everyone everything is under control, even while the house is burning behind him. He's the kind of guy who smiles, pats your shoulder, and says, "Don't worry, I've got this." Right as the Wi-Fi dies, the fridge stops working, and a raccoon sets your garage on fire. On the surface, it's smooth reassurance. Underneath, it's pure chaos. That's the illusion Lindi just shattered, and now no one can look away as the mess plays out.
What would you tell me? How soon was it? After the election? Like
a week or two. It wasn't at that point. I was just asking questions. Like, it wasn't even. I was like, "What happened to the $2.5 billion we raised? Why did we spend it on Beyonce? Why did we spend 2.5? Why did we spend millions of dollars on Oprah?" Like legitimate questions that needed to be answered. For the amount of hate I got from that was just overwhelming. And the final straw, the moment that I knew to leave, was actually around.
To really understand the roast, you have to see the costume Walz built for himself. He assembled his image like a political IKEA shelf, simple, practical, and just strong enough to hold a few family photos. But look too closely and the whole thing starts to wobble. He's the teacher-turned-politician, the friendly neighbor you'd trust to water your plants, the dad joke guy who also runs the National Guard. On paper, it sounds perfect.
And then the biggest tell of the evening was when he told the moderators, "Well, I thought the rules stipulated," or something to the effect of the rules were saying that you weren't going to fact check. And you talked about own goals. That was an own goal. That said everything. But so he was happy about the fact that no one was going to push back.
Are you frustrated then that Walz didn't make the argument that you're making to me right now?
I think he did a really good job tonight. And we had
She looked at Walz's record and basically said, "Nice mask, what's underneath?" After that, the receipts started flying. While Walz sold himself as the calm hand on the wheel, the car kept swerving like a teenager learning stick shift. His COVID policies felt confusing. Shut it down, open it up, lock it again, then act surprised when everyone's lost. He called himself pragmatic, but his idea of strategy often looked more like flipping a coin and calling it leadership. And crime? That's another story. Walz tried to dance between reform and law and order until he tripped over his own contradictions. While he clung to talking points, the headlines told a very different story, one that didn't match his bedtime version of steady leadership. What made Lindi's takedown so effective was that she didn't just point out flaws, she layered on sarcasm like hot sauce, exposing hypocrisy you couldn't unsee. Walz claimed the moral high ground while staying cozy with insiders. He might as well have been part of the furniture at DC cocktail parties. He branded himself as grassroots, but you'd need a telescope to find those roots buried under all that establishment shine.
Highest rating of the night when he pointed out that Trump completely failed on the border. He didn't deliver on the border wall that he promised. He blew up the border deal that we have border as a campaign issue. So he scored really highly also when he mentioned Matthew 25 and how his faith guides and inspires his empathy for people, a quality that Trump and Vance so abundantly lack.
Lindi didn't just poke holes in Walz's story, she tore it apart like Swiss cheese. She reminded everyone that polishing your image doesn't erase the messy decisions behind it. What makes this hit so hard isn't just that Walz seems inconsistent, it's that his everyman, teacher next door vibe now feels more like a costume than the real thing. It's like discovering your favorite indie band was actually assembled in a boardroom to sell to suburban shoppers. That's Walz, the Target brand candidate. And now that he's in the national spotlight as Harris's VP pick, the scrutiny isn't just intense, it's blinding. Every flaw that might have been overlooked in Minnesota is suddenly front-page news. Lindi Lee is out there holding up a neon sign that says, "Look at this." If Walz hoped to coast on cardigan charm, that dream is.
It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals, they get early childhood education, they get health care. So that hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget, Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those.
Addressing this is even trickier because stepping into Lindi's arena means walking straight into a storm of sarcasm when you're already bleeding. But here's the twist, it's not just about Walz anymore. It's about a political system built on carefully controlling image, and Walz just happens to be the latest face caught mid-a costume change. Lindi Lee plays the commentator gleefully pointing out that the emperor's new clothes don't quite fit. That's why this hits harder than a typical critique. One viral roast opens the floodgates, and suddenly journalists, rivals, and online sleuths are digging through Walz's record like it's a mystery novel. Once someone says, "Hey, there's a crack," everyone wants to see how deep it goes. Exposure doesn't stop at one post, it spreads. Now Walz is trying to project the image of a calm co-pilot for Harris's campaign, while the internet jokes that his steady hand looks more like it's shaking a martini in an earthquake. Lindi lit the match, and now everyone's watching to see how big the fire gets. Meanwhile, the spin doctors are scrambling like chefs who forgot to preheat the oven, and honestly, it's a spectacle that's hard to look away from.
Feedback. I want to take you back to the very first answer that he gave. Let's just remind ourselves, he sort of stumbled through. Right now the crisis in the Middle East is, front and center of the global news agenda, and we would expect maybe that someone who was running to be the vice president would have more confidence. Let's remind ourselves of what happened.
October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in.
Walz's team now has to decide whether to double down on that cozy cardigan charm or pretend nothing's happening, but spoiler alert, neither option really works. When Lindi Lee roasts you, it's not a debate, it's a full-blown barbecue, and the smoke lingers. The first defense is always it's out of context, because these days everything seems to be framed that way. Walz could trip over a garden hose and someone would spin it as an inspiring leap. But once people start noticing a pattern, no number of carefully worded statements can fully patch it up. The media reaction split quickly. Some outlets still treat Walz like the lovable Midwestern uncle who brings hot dish to the potluck, brushing off Lindi's takedown as just another spicy post. Others, however, sense opportunity, and nothing draws clicks.